Hello, welcome back to our series on Kubernetes for beginners. In the previous video, we had discussed about Kubernetes resources. But before we start creating resources, we need to understand how these are defined. So in this video, we will be diving into something important, and that is YAML files. If you have been working with Kubernetes, you have probably seen these YAML files everywhere. But what exactly is YAML? And why is it so important in Kubernetes? Let's break it down. So, what is YAML? YAML stands for YAML and Markup Language. Yeah, it's a bit of a quirky name, but it's a powerful tool. YAML stores data in a format that is easy to read both by humans and machines. Think of it like a more readable version of a JSON or XML. Well, you might be thinking that we already had XML and JSON file formats, then why do we need YAML? Well, XML and JSON are common file formats in web development, where JSON is preferred for its simplicity and XML is better for complex data. However, YAML is becoming popular in Kubernetes because it's easier to read and is more flexible, making it a go-to format for configurations and managing of our Kubernetes resources. Let's take a look at some of the basic YAML syntax. YAML is all about key value pairs. For example, let's create a simple YAML file which contains first name and last name. So we will write first name, then a colon and the name of the person and the last name. So here first name and last name are the keys and John and Smith are the values. It's straightforward, right? Next, let's look at list. YAML lists are super simple to write. We just have to define a key and then add value by adding hyphen against each of them. For example, our key is skills and our values are Kubernetes, Docker, Terraform. This hyphens represents item in a list. YAML also allows for nested structure, which means you can have a list within a key value pair. So, for example, we have person, the first name, last name, then the skills, that is Kubernetes and Docker. So why is YAML important for Kubernetes? Well, YAML is the language Kubernetes speaks. All these pods, services, deployments, and other Kubernetes resources, they are defined using YAML files. These files tells Kubernetes what you want it to do, like which container image to use, how many replicas you need, or even how to manage network traffic. So YAML files are like a configuration files or the properties file that we usually use, and we define the structure for our Kubernetes resources. Let's break down a simple Kubernetes YAML file. This is what a basic definition looks like in a YAML. Every Kubernetes resources follow the same structure, which contains API version, kind, metadata, and specifications. Here is API versions, which tells Kubernetes which version of its API to use. We will discuss more about this in another video, but consider its values like v1, apps v1, or it's like beta or something of that sort. Then we have kind. This defines the type of resources you are creating. For example, if you are creating pods, then you type pod. If you are creating services, then type services or deployments or any other Kubernetes resources. Then we have metadata. This contains metadata about the resources like its name, labels, and some other information. Then we have specification and it is written as SPEC. This is where you define the desired state of your resource. In our example, we are specifying a container with the name nginx container that uses nginx latest image. So, this is how the standard definition of pod will look like. But let's do something practical. I am going to show you how to create a pod using a YAML file. We will start by writing the YAML file and then apply it to our Kubernetes cluster. So in our Docker project folder or any other folder in your system, create a new file called mypod.yaml and let's edit it. So let's copy paste this content. So API version v1 kind pod metadata. We will give it as name as mypod And specification, it will contain the containers. You can define multiple containers over here, but I'm going to use single container, that is nginx, and the image name. Okay, once this is done, save the file and exit the editor. Now we are going to apply this YAML file to our Kubernetes cluster using the kubectl apply command. So how does it work? Just open a terminal or locate the path where kubectl is defined and open command prompt. So type kubectl apply -f. -f is for the file name. Then the file name, that is mypod.yaml. So it's simple, kubectl apply and the file name. And there we go. Kubernetes reads our YAML file and creates a pod exactly as we defined it. We can verify the newly created pod by running following command: kubectl get pods, and we can see the pod that has been created. Okay, when working with YAML, it's important to keep things organized. Why I am saying so? Well, YAML files can get pretty complex. So here are a few things that we have to take care of. First is keep it neat. So indentation matters in YAML. So be consistent. Even a small space or a tab will affect your YAML file, and ultimately it might cause a trouble in your pods. And then use comments. You can add comments in YAML using pound symbol. This helps explain what each part of your configuration does. Validate your YAML. Before applying a YAML file, use a linting tool or a file formatter to make sure your syntax is correct. I generally use Visual Studio Code for my Kubernetes resources development, and I also use terminal from there for the simplicity. You can also try that. Well, that's it for this chapter on YAML. We have covered what YAML is, how it's used in Kubernetes, and even walked through a practical example. In the next video, we will dive deeper into more complex Kubernetes resources. So stay tuned, and as always, if you find this video helpful, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. See you next time.